there's one topic that is off limits. I'm assuming that's the Cardinals and what happened to them in the World Series.
It's all right with them.
I know. It's like my team didn't do too well either. So, I mean, I tried really hard to feel sad for my team, but it was really much sadder for the Cardinals. It was this close, this close. Anyway, in case you guys didn't know what we're talking about, it's baseball. You know, it's a design conference, so I'm not assuming everybody knows baseball. So, welcome back. It's been a while since you joined us on stage. You did the first roadmap, which is back in 2011, and we talked about a lot of things, including great denim recommendation. I'm not telling anyone anymore what that recommendation is. I'll let you do that. But let's talk about what's been going on with you. How's Square doing in the last 2 years or so? How have things progressed?
It's been amazing to watch and to be a part of. We've had 2 major launches in the past 6 months. In that we enabled anyone who's using Register to simply flip a switch, and they can go from being a local business to a national business through Square Market. So just one simple flick of the wrist, and they have a e-commerce. And then one of the things I'm most excited about right now is a product we just released about 3 weeks ago, which is called Square Cash, that enables anyone to send money via an email. So you can actually just compose an email, send it to cc cash@square.com, put any amount in the subject line, and it goes right off, and you enter in your debit card to receive that. We can push that money right to your debit card instead of you having to put in a bank account. So what's most interesting about this product is you have everything in your pocket that you need to actually transfer money out of your mobile phone, and you have a plastic card, and you can use that pretty much instantaneously.
Right. Well, in case you want to send me money, it's all my Gigaom. I absolutely love that product. Like, I tried to send money to somebody this weekend, and they lived in Canada, so I wasn't able to. But the whole experience, the choice of colors, and this was an email, and I like, the email itself, the Square Cash email was a pretty amazing experience. So, what I wanted to talk about was like how Square thinks about experience, right? Like the Square Cash experience was like so amazing because there was no friction in that experience. Like it's just like one email and it just happens. So how do you guys think about it? Like what is the Square way of thinking which other people should be thinking about as well?
Well, I don't know if it necessarily works for everyone, but it certainly works for us. We have this principle in the company, which is show, don't tell. So what that means is we don't want to go around the world and tell people, we're going to build the best way to accept credit cards via your mobile phone or the best way to send money via email. We want to show them and then have them show it off as well. So what that means is we have to have an experience that feels great, that feels like something new. It feels like something that should have always been, but a lot of people wouldn't have normally seen that go that way. And we've had the benefit of having multiple occurrences of that throughout our history. So, 4 years ago, nearly 5 years ago now, we built a very simple card reader that plugged into a mobile phone. And the first time we showed people and swiped their card, they said, "Wow, how'd you do that? I want that." And it resonated with folks immediately. And then we had them sign with their finger, and they said, "Wow." And it seems obvious right now, and it seems like something that always should have been, but back then it was entirely new, and people would question it both in positive and negative ways. But it gave them a lot of pause about what this thing was, what this thing meant, and it was enough to talk about it. But to pay attention to that principle of show don't tell, we want to make something internally that we feel great about, that we feel like, wow, this is something that just feels amazing, it feels stunning, it feels like something that we want to use every single day, which was very, very hard in the early days of the company because a lot of us in the company, we're not merchants, we're not sellers, so we're not necessarily building for people who are us. And it's, when you're building for yourself, it's easy to have passion, it's easy to have drive, but when you're not, it becomes much, much harder. So one of the framings that we kind of got into was, well, we are all buyers. We love these merchants that we go to. We love places like Blue Bottle and Cyclass Coffee. We want to do right by them. We want to have a great experience as well. We don't want to have them wait and try to figure out an ugly point of sale system or all these mechanical things, because that actually impacts the time that we spend in line or the time it takes for us to get the cappuccino that I just ordered. So that framing kind of helped us get into that sense of we're building for ourselves still. But that feeling of wow, like, that's a great experience. It happened again with Wallet. It happened again with Market, and it happened again with Cash. Once we first saw the product, we had a prototype built in about 3 weeks, and I received my first dollar from our engineers. It's just an eye-opening experience. It felt like it should be. It felt like so easy that I want this everywhere and I want to use it for everything.
Right. The funny thing, when I think about Square, I use Square a lot. So the thing which I love about Square is the little things, right? The receipt you get from Cyclass when you get Cyclass coffee, and they send you that receipt. There is a very subtle marketing going on there, which is like the receipt is structured in a way that it's a reminder of that, not a transaction, but of that moment. Same as with the colors you choose in Cash. I just wonder, how do you arrive at those decisions? How do you arrive at that decision of making, receipt such a focal point of the process?
Well, early on in the company, we were building this thing that enabled people to accept credit cards, and credit cards don't always have the most positive feelings around them. Money as a concept is something that touches every single person on the planet, and every single person on the planet feels bad about it at some point in their life. It feels like a burden. So how do you actually abstract that away? And one of the things that really excited us in the early days was a receipt. Putting a very simple map on the receipt where the transaction took place, putting a business's Twitter account, putting a big picture of what they just sold, a beautiful photograph of a cappuccino, just to make it feel like something that was a lot more tangible and also a lot more focused around communication. So in the early days, we saw the receipt as this amazing kind of, often played down and often forgotten about communication channel. And it kind of evolved our thinking, and this is not about payments, this is about commerce. And the definition of commerce is the activity between buyers and sellers. And that's been going on for over 5,000 years. We were trading things as humans before we were using language to trade stories. Right? So it's as old as our civilization, but over time it's just gotten more abstract and more obtuse and more expensive, and less people can participate, whereas communication has always gotten easier, freer, more participation, and something that's really tangible and feels great. So our mission at Square is to make commerce easy, and to make it as easy as communication. And that means that we don't see it as payments, we see it as this continuum. So it's not just the swipe of the credit card, it's everything that happens before, it's everything that happens after, and a big part of what happens after is the receipt.
Right. The thing which I love, sometimes in life you're lucky enough to shop at a luxury establishment and they never show you the receipt. It's always very discreet, and it's almost like the transaction didn't happen, it just was an interaction. And I think when I look at the web today, a lot of people don't think about those subtle things, it becomes the shopping cart is so ugly, it just is all created around the idea of less utility. Do you think there is room for improvement in a world which has, Amazon complete commerce utility?
Absolutely. Otherwise I wouldn't be here. But offline commerce, going up to a neighborhood store, still accounts for over 90% of commerce in the world. E-commerce has only taken about 10% of that. So it's a massive market, and there's a lot of pain that every seller has to go through. And what that pain actually equates to is time that they have to spend learning a new system, dealing with a point of sale system that is not intuitive. It takes time away from them thinking about building their business, thinking about serving their customer. And if you give that time back by making something easy, making something intuitive, making it accessible so that more and more people can participate, people have time to spend on what is truly more meaningful to them. And that is, that is exactly our mission.
Right.
And I think we have a long way to go in that. And, we're just getting started.
So what about all those people who are throwing out square killers and square copycats, and what do you make of those guys? Do you think they start to eat into your plan, like your vision of the world, and just eat away at it?
I think it's easy for a lot of companies, whether they're small startups or the cafe around the corner, to look at the competition and react purely to them. But if you're reacting to someone else, you're doing someone else's roadmap, right? You're not doing your own roadmap. You're not performing your own vision. You're just simply reacting to everything that you see in the market. So we have to have the confidence and the conviction of our vision, of our roadmap, that it's the right thing because it should be in the world, and that we feel so strongly about it that we're willing to do whatever it takes to make it exist. And, we're going to see a lot of people who do similar things to us, but we believe that, what we're doing end-to-end cohesively has never been done before. And we like the way, we like our approach, which has to do a lot with the feeling of the transaction, the feeling of the trade, rather than just the mechanical aspects. A lot of folks in our industry are looking at individual parts and not necessarily tying them together. So you have someone who's building a terminal, someone who's building analytics, someone who's building a point of sale system, someone who's building coupons and loyalty and all these things, and none of them connect together. So that means the customer of that merchant actually sees all the seams behind all these. So, our mindset is, let's build the one cohesive stack so that there are no seams. So it feels like a fluid environment and touches everything from the decision all the way to discovery, all the way to the transaction, and then what happens when you leave, and, getting you back.
So what is, when I say the end-to-end, you say end-to-end experience, what is it? What is it that you're trying? What is the narrative of Square that you're trying to tell?
Well, very simply captured in a phrase, we want to meet our customers where they are. So, with the original card reader, everyone was carrying a phone in their pocket. They all had touch screens. They have a lot of power, so we can actually build the credit card terminal on it. And we add a little bit of hardware, and it makes it better. It gives it a superpower. And that enables people to accept a form of payment that everyone is now carrying around to the decrement of cash and checks. So we released that, and we saw people use it, and then we saw SideClass use it a lot, and we learned a lot from it. And one of the things that they were doing immediately is they were accepting credit cards, which they no longer had to turn those people away to go find an ATM in their neighborhood. But they're also accepting cash. People are still using cash, they're still using checks, and they had to account for those transactions in a completely different system. So they also had to type out the word cappuccino and calculate how many cappuccinos, what the cost of 2 was, or 3 or 4 or whatever. And those are things that we can make easier just by building into the software. So we made a full point of sale, we made a full register. And one of the things that we benefited from is now we had all this item level detail that we could actually push back to our merchants to say, hey, this is your most popular item. This is when it's the most popular. This is your busiest day. This is what happens when it rains. A lot of folks in our industry, they only see the amounts. They only see $12.34. We can actually tell the merchant, you sold 2 cappuccinos and a biscotti, and week over week, if you move the biscotti jar, your biscotti sales go down, right? So these are analytics that we're used to on web, but offline merchants have never had access to. A lot of them just because they didn't know that they were necessarily the right thing to look at or the most important thing. But we've had merchants who have looked at this simple data and seen that they close at 4 p.m. There's this rush of people that come in at 3:40. What if we stay open 1 hour later? It increases our revenue by 20%, right? And it seems obvious, but when you're running a business like that, it's not. So anything that can really surface everything that's happening in your business is meaningful. So that's what we mean by the end-to-end, is we want to make sure that a buyer coming in and a seller has just an amazing, great human conversational experience instead of worrying about the mechanics of what they have to go through.
So how have you architected your company in a sense? Do hardware people talk to the software people? I'm assuming in order to come to analytical conclusions, you have a full data science team somewhere. They are looking through data. So how do these people collaborate? Like, what is the square makeup of this hardware, software, data, and an online service?
Again, to really focus our time on what's most meaningful, we went in very, very simple process and practices within the company. And the simplest thing to do inside a company for us was to give every one of our employees access to all the information. So in that spirit of show, don't tell, we share everything with our employees. So any meeting of substance, any meeting with more than 2 people, someone is required in that meeting to take notes. And they send that to an alias called notes@squareup.com. And that goes out to the entire company. And as a company grows from 3 people to 30 to, we're over 600 people right now. When you're just starting out, everyone's in the same meeting because there are no meeting rooms, right? Everyone kind of participates. But as you grow, you start developing these feelings of like, why is that guy in that meeting? Why am I not invited to that meeting? I want to be in that meeting. What's he talking about? Why does he like him more than me? Why shouldn't I be there? And then you start thinking about all these things that are not actually the work. So we want to do, everything we do is to really focus ourselves back onto the work. So if you enable people to, just share what's happening in a meeting, then you see, oh, that's what's happening. I don't need to be there. That's something I didn't want to participate in anyway. But you wouldn't know it unless you had that sort of record. So everything we do is kind of aligned around this spirit of show, don't tell, and responsible transparency. We just had a board meeting at Square last week, and we had a 250-page pre-read into the board deck, and we sent that out to the entire company. Over 600 people have our entire board deck in their email inbox. So there's a huge amount of trust in the fact that everyone receiving that will look through it and bring their own perspective and bring their own perception to it, and may have an idea that really changes the course of the company. And if we constantly do that, we can build a company that regenerates. It's not dependent on any one person in the company, but actually outlive all of us who are currently in the company, because it's always looking for that next thing and always looking, enabling and empowering that new perspective.
Why did you arrive at that decision that this openness of information is vital for creating a new kind of a company, new kind of a product?
Selfishly, it's just the simplest thing to do. It's very hard to keep secrets, and it's very easy to just give information and people can, interpret it in any way they wish. And every now and then you have something that is, truly insightful and really changes the mind of folks. So we've built the structure of our office around that as well. We have very, very few conference rooms. We have tons of stand-up tables. It's completely open. It's this wide boulevard that, a lot of people congregate around and have conversations, and anyone can walk around the office, and just through serendipity, you hear all these things that you could never, ever schedule. Right? You walk by a conversation and you pick up on something and it changes your mind, it changes your perception, or you can get in that conversation and actually change someone else's mind. So these are things that you no matter what you do, you can't schedule them. And we benefit so much from, how quickly we can move against the changing circumstance and the changing reality of what's happening around the company.
So how have you incorporated the feedback loop from the actual marketplace, like how people use Square and Square data you have now to recreate or modify and improve your experience? I don't know. It's like I've seen subtle changes in the Square reader, for example. So how did those come about?
Well, our customer service organization and our risk operations organization are front line. They're interacting with their customers every single day. So if you're building an organization and you're not treating those organizations as a feedback loop, you're really missing out on an opportunity. And of course, we take those as input. We don't react to them, but we take it as input, weigh it against what we want to see in the world, against the decisions that we have to make, and then we hopefully do the right thing there. So we put a lot of weight into the feedback coming in through those channels. We put a lot of weight into what we're experiencing, because we go to our sellers every single day. We try to encourage them to come in to our office and tell stories and talk about, what's working and what's not working. And then we hold events around the country. We're doing one this week in New Orleans on Thursday, which is, brings a bunch of merchants from the local area together to just talk about, the challenges and the successes of building a business in a city. And we have 4 merchants that, come up on stage, and we simply have a conversation like this. Here's what works, here's what doesn't work. Here's what New Orleans is doing as a city to help small businesses in the area. Here's what could be much, much better. One of the things that I loved in St. Louis, where I'm from, we had this coffee owner named Scott, Some Coffee, and we had the mayor in attendance for this event. And, I asked, what could the city be doing better? And he said, the city needs my business. The city needs me in the neighborhood. My neighborhood was going downhill. It's all abandoned buildings, and I chose to move to New York, from New York to St. Louis to open my coffee store. And I got to City Hall, and I could not find one person that told me everything I need to open my business. I had to talk to 18 different people in City Hall. If you give me a checklist, I will do everything on it. But no one has that checklist. Why can't we streamline the government so I can go up, I talk to one person, and then I'm in business, and it benefits the city. And the mayor the next day, he tweeted out that, tomorrow we're going to talk about small businesses and how we can improve the interface of city government, of government at large, to encourage us, because it's 55% of our economy right now is small. 55% of jobs in this country are from small businesses. Right? So it's deeply, deeply meaningful. And if you build simple technologies that enable them to focus on truly the meaningful things, then they can move faster.
So what does that mean? I think I understand what Square is trying to do. How do we make sure that the rest of the tech industry think about this kind of, take this approach where the technology almost becomes invisible, the experience becomes completely transparent? How do we do that? I know we are running short on time. Before we go, I would love for you to answer that, and so that we all are thinking about this in a correct manner.
I think it has to come back, from experience. And the tool that's helped me the most, and certainly Square, is really doing the work to visualize what we want to see in the world, and painting that picture through whatever medium works, whether it's drawing, code, writing narratives, whatever, and then working backwards from that. And of course, if you look a year out and you paint that picture for a year out, of course it's going to change because the circumstances around change. But that tool for me has been really fundamental, because we can see this is what we want to use in the world. This is the experience we want to have. And it's not about technology disappearing or how we design things or how we engineer things. This is what we want to use every single day, and we hope it resonates with other people. We're making the bet that it's going to resonate with other people, and we go out as far as we can, and then we just work backwards and break it into the smallest problems. To me, a lot of what great engineering and great design is taking something that's very large, very complex, and breaking it into very simple problems that we can feel like we're solving in sequence, and we're moving as quickly as possible. And we have the self-awareness to realize when we're going the wrong direction, or we're working on the wrong tiny things, right? And we've lost vision of that painting that we're trying to create. So it sounds simple, but it's actually just doing the really, really hard work of painting what you want to see in the world, and then doing the work to break it apart into this sequence where you can actually execute on it. And then it's all about patience. And that to me has been what's really defined Square's success is having both of those.
I think patience is okay if you have your kind of profile and your kind of backing, but patience for startups is a little difficult in Silicon Valley, because they all are under a different kind of push and pull, especially from the investor community.
Well, but I was in the same place with Square. I mean, people would look at what Square was, and they would say, your previous life was about, microblogging about what people had for breakfast. Why do you think you can move money around? You've never worked in finance. You've never dealt with credit cards. Sellers aren't, the sexiest thing in the world. This was all their perception, right? Credit cards, aren't they going away? Isn't it all digital? And it was very much an uphill battle given my background. So I love that because it makes you stronger and it makes you better and it really clarifies what you're trying to do in the world. So, we just addressed it head on in our pitches to investors, which a lot of them said no to. I listed out, here's, 140 reasons why Square will fail. And I went through all of them. And then the next slide was, here's 10 reasons why we'll succeed. And you either trust us to do that or you don't. And if you don't invest. We're not going to be sad about it.
You have a thing for 140 characters, right? Seriously. Thank you, Jack. I know this is a busy week for you, so thank you for taking time and coming on stage and talking to us.
Thank you so much.
Good luck with that.